back here on the Cover 3 podcast. And I want to ask, did you think Washington was in trouble? At what point did you believe that Washington was not in trouble against Utah? Because, all right, so for the stats and facts here, the Washington defense, which has been often criticized and maligned at times, I mean, we saw USC just put up 42 on them. Things looked like it was moving in the wrong direction quickly because Bryson Barnes rolled off 4 straight touchdown drives in the first half against this Washington defense. And it looked, especially, Michael Penix only completes 5 of his first 12 passes. Looks off. I mean, his full game statistics weren't fantastic either, but the accuracy, I mean, just everything was just like a shade off. They weren't bad throws. It was just a little bit just off, and that's fine. He made enough plays, with his feet. He showed up in some scoring positions, got some touchdown passes that I wouldn't say it was a bad performance for Penix, but it was just enough that with the way the Huskies defense was being so leaky in the first half, they caught themselves in a difficult position. But Dylan Johnson for the second straight game shows up. That ground game was really good. And the Washington defense, again, couple turnovers, 2 interceptions, an amazing moment that ended up righting itself overall in terms of thought it was a pick 6, dropped it out of bounds, but then it turned into a safety. That was a bananas turn of events. But then everything settles. Water finds its level. Washington wins. How do you justify this one in terms of how we look at the Huskies? Number 5 in the AP poll, number 5 in the college football playoff rankings. The team with a 0 in the loss column that everyone seems to believe is the last of those 5 undefeated teams at the top.
I was never that concerned. Like you mentioned the 4 drives that Utah had in the second quarter. Like Utah had 219 yards in the second quarter and 160 yards in the other 3 quarters. And the one thing that was kind of keeping me from being too worried was that even in the first quarter, like Utah couldn't really run the ball. And I was like, okay, so Bryson Barnes is going to have to be Superman for the last 3 quarters of this game for Utah to have a chance. And then he was Superman for about 10 minutes in the second quarter. But then the second half started and like Utah didn't do anything. Like Washington struggled to put it away because offensively they weren't playing that well. Like Utah's defense was doing a very good job of keeping them in this game, but Utah had 76 yards in the second half. Like they never really looked like they were going to be capable of winning the game because you knew 28 points was not going to be enough to win. Like they needed another couple touchdowns to put this thing to bed because the defense was only going to be able to hold up against Washington for so long. And then they made the pick 6, which should have been a touchdown, should have probably put it to bed, but then resulted in the safety a play later. So, yeah, it felt like it was a tough game for Washington, but even though it was close, I was never that scared.
Really the same. And it's not because of something I saw in the game. It's because of what I've seen from Utah for the last 10 weeks, right? Like what is the likelihood that Utah is able to put up another half of 300 yards? Because I do expect Washington to score at least, 2 or 3 times in the second half. Like, can Utah really drive consistently? And Tom nailed it. I mean, 300 yards in the first half. I didn't think they would shut them down to the extent that they did shut them down. But ultimately, 70 yards in the second half is pretty ridiculous. So, I mean, guys, it's Utah's offense. They're not good, especially not with Barnes. They had a really nice half. I was like, can they really keep this up? If they can, then Washington, probably has no business in the playoff. But as to, I guess, the ultimate feeling on Washington, Penix looked the best to me that he looked in a couple weeks. So, that was encouraging. Maybe he's getting healthier. I hope he is. And we'll either see Penix beat Oregon again in the title game, or we won't. It's just going to come down to that. As long as they keep winning, they'll be there. And probably Oregon will as well. Oregon will be favored by about a touchdown, it looks like. And that's not a lock, right? Being favored by 7 is no guarantee.
Yeah, like even when they missed that field goal in like the last 2 minutes, I was still like, oh, okay, now we just got to rely on Utah to drive down the field in 90 seconds and score a touchdown. And it was just like, okay. And then 2 or 3 plays later, it was an interception. The game was over.
I thought, yeah, we'll see.
What'd you think?
Well,
the OPI,
what?
The offensive pass interference.
Yeah.
Oh, was that was something that you want to resonate on?
Kind of. Apparently, my internet's not bad, so I'm going to talk only when I have additional things to add. I guess I can hear you guys fine. Looks like you guys can hear me in fine, but I guess some of the chat can't. So, sorry.
I would say your audio is coming across great. And I think
The
you're
video
just
is delayed.
I think it's the
Okay.
lighting, the framing, and the blurriness that's bringing out the Max Headroom jokes. Don't let those stop you from cooking, okay? The information is coming across fine.
Oh, he said I'm coming in 120p, which is awesome, but the audio is great. All right, cool.
Yeah. I don't want you to limit what you are trying to offer to this product. As we are, hey, I haven't said this in a while, multi-platform excellence. So, we got a lot of got a lot of listeners to serve as well.
I did think that some of the throws Penix made were like really good. Just really, really nice. And that was he can drive the ball sometimes. I was pretty impressed, man. Do I think Washington can win a natty? I don't know, not really. But if they go undefeated, you can't deny them, and they're gonna have a shot.
I think they could lose at Oregon State next week.
Yeah, they could. I don't think they will.
That's that to me.
Oregon State's secondary is kind of sketch,
Mm-hmm.
and Stanford can't exploit it, I guess.
Yeah, I mean that game just got sideways and out of Stanford's control really quickly.
The only thing Stanford can exploit are murky laws around tech. Am I right, fellas? Come on.
Hey. All right. So if we are to project the new AP Top 25, do we think that Michigan is going to overtake Georgia for number 1?
No.
Hell no. 50 burger on the board against a top 10 team. And despite whatever we have said about Ole Miss,
a top 10 team.
Despite whatever we have said about Ole Miss here on the Cover 3 podcast, same voters that put those Rebels in the top 10 are going to be making the same decisions about what to do with Georgia. Brock Bowers was back. They ran the football effectively. And Ole Miss could do absolutely nothing in this game.